Welcome to the Radio Horror Show. If you're listening to this on the radio show tonight here at WCUW, it will be just an audio story told between me and the author Bridget, who's written the book The Life, Death, and Rebirth of a Classic Film, The Crow. Thank you for coming on the show, Bridget.
Yeah, I just got my advanced copy like 2 days ago.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, I'm very
But if
excited.
you missed this, you can find this on the YouTube channel as a video. So in case somebody holds something up, you'll see what we're talking about. Where did the genesis of this book start from? Because I'm assuming you timed it very well to tie into the 30th anniversary, the 4K release that just happened this past week. Which I don't know. Did you get the 4K release, by the way?
I did not know.
Oh, okay. It's okay. All the previous bonus features are carried over. There's like about maybe 30 to 40 minutes of new bonus material with the interviews, and then there's like a spotlight on like the statue that recently came out where it has the crow standing on the fire that lights up. So that's kind of cool. And a laser disc commentary from overseas with the producer and the writer that was not included on the Blu-ray or the DVD, which is kind of cool. Um, None of the still galleries or poster stuff or whatever was carried over, but it's steelbook, pretty nice.
I saw part of it. I mean, I've seen clips of it. People have sent me different clips, but I haven't gotten a copy of it now. I'm sure
I,
I can.
I was just at the flea market. Somebody had a VHS copy of The Crow. I picked it up. It was $1.
Oh, well, good, great. Great. It's going to be on the 30th. I think the end of this month it's going to be on. I don't know. I think it's going to be released limited in theaters
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, there's going
And
to have a limited release around the country, I think.
and here in Massachusetts in October, there's a theater called the Coolidge Corner Theater. They're going to be showing it as part of just like their midnight kind of releases.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So I think it's just one day, but it'll be cool.
cool. But
So
back to my
the
question. Sorry.
genesis of I wrote the original. So I was an entertainment reporter in Los Angeles. I worked for Sky News and various other Reuters International and other news outlets. And I um I actually was commissioned to see if I could find a book in the story in 1998. It was New Year's Eve in 1998, and I was at a dinner with a publisher and some other people in Los Angeles, and they said, well, he said that he had different publications that were more like, fan press sort of calendars at the time. And he said, this is a property that sells really well. Now, I had seen The Crow. I went to UCLA Film School. When I was ending film school, it was released in Westwood, and I went to go see the film. I thought it was excellent, but I had nothing to do with the production of the film. Obviously, Brandon Lee was a rising star. So when in 1998, that was in 94, but when the film was released in 98, I was asked to look into, hey, if you can find a story in this, I will entertain publishing your book. I had always thought I would write a book at some point. I was not only a print, but a television journalist and documentary maker. And I did start looking into it. And I discovered that no one had chronicled what had happened. And in 1998, 99, it was after all the civil and the criminal cases had settled, and the cast and crew who had worked on the film, who were very traumatized, obviously, by the accident, the tragic accident. They had also been asked to sign waivers by the production company, Pressman Films, that they never speak to the press, but those contracts had ended in 99. So when I came along, they were skeptical, but they wanted to share their story, and I gained their trust. And so the genesis of me writing the book was kind of by accident. And I found out this was an amazing story and no one had ever told it before. So I created basically a making of the movie book. And I really wanted to do that because I didn't want to just focus on, first of all, I didn't want to write a book that was just about the tragedy on the set or a kind of, I wanted to really cover the genesis of The Crow, from its graphic novel to being licensed to James O'Barr's saga from the beginning, and the entire genesis of the production and why it was so exceptional, not only for the accident and the tragedy that happened to Brandon Lee, but because stylistically the film had some very innovative people who worked on it, and filmmaking techniques. And that was my interest. And so that's what I put together. So the original version came out in 2000. And then in 2023, I had a new publisher in London, and that was a little bit of an update. And then it kind of, I continued to get called occasionally to do interviews because I'm the only person who wrote a book about the movie, that really covers it comprehensively, in all of its anecdotes and my many, many interviews. It's really told by the people who worked on it.
Right.
And it just in the last 4 or 5 years, obviously there was a lot of ins and outs, and you probably know about the various attempts to, in 2010, they were done with sequels. Pressman Films was parted ways with the original producer, Jeff Most, but there was a lot of efforts by different creative teams to license the property and try to make a reimagining, which the new film will be, a reimagining of the original film. So no sequels, no like carry on the idea of the crow in a different way. And that went through many, many iterations of creative teams, stars attached to it, from Bradley Cooper to so many different actors, and directors, famous directors. They all fell through. Almost there with Jason Momoa, almost there in 2018, fell apart. So finally, another team of people got it together and they cast Bill Skarsgård as the lead. But in the midst of that, which I kind of in the back of my mind, still getting real royalties occasionally, the rights had reverted back to me. I've gone on to do many other things, and I thought, well, the 30th anniversary is kind of coming up, and I've stayed in touch with a lot of the people who worked on the film. Become Several of them have become friends and just colleagues, I guess. And it was in the back of my mind, but then when the Rust event happened, it really put, even before it was sure that this new version of the film was going to come out, it kind of put the spotlight back on the original film. And I became a consultant with a lot of different media organizations. Somehow over this time, I had become the expert on what had happened on The Crow because I am the only person who put all the information into a book. Um, and it's the only similar accident, what happened on Rust. It's the only similar firearms accident in 30 years, which is great, but it brought focus back to the original film, to The Crow. So that sort of got me thinking, I have the rights to this property. I'm getting a lot of calls and a lot of interest. I talked to the original producer, Jeff Most, of the movie, and I thought, maybe when I knew that the new film, the reimagining with Bill Skarsgård and the new creative team is coming out, I thought, well, maybe this is 2 years ago. Maybe I have a lot of writer friends in New York, and maybe I should just reach out to them, and they're well published. And I thought, see what they think. So I got passed on to one guy who said, another writer who's well known in the mystery sort of fiction world. And he said, call my manager. I did. I called her and I said, hey, I've got this 1-page synopsis of how I would update the book. There seems to be a lot of attention on it just naturally because of timing. It's become, there's new and old audiences that continue to love the franchise. It continues to be a social kind of touchstone for a lot of people, even though it was 30 years ago. And she brought it to a publisher 2 days later, and now I have a fantastic publisher in New York, and I wrote an entirely updated version because 20 years is a long time and a lot of things have happened. And so that's the new publication, and it has a photo insert, and I'm really, really happy with it. So it's kind of a surprise, but a lot of new interviews, a lot of the people who didn't want to be interviewed because of whatever trauma or hesitation they had in 2000, are in this version, and I'm really happy with it.
So there was another version of this book 20 years ago. That I wasn't aware of. This this one this book just covers the first film.
It's just about the making of the movie The Crow, although obviously in the later chapters, it's about the Crow franchise. It's about how what impact, and there's mention in some interviews to do with the sequels and mention of the TV show. I mean, I have I do create some, I give some airtime or some time to the many attempts to continue the franchise initially and then to reinvent it. Because The Crow is I kind of looked at it holistically as a franchise, and culminating in this new film.
Right.
So I mean, the first two or three chapters are really about the origin of the Crow. In fact, the first chapter is named The Origin of the Crow, which really is about James O'Barr, what was going on in comics and underground comics at that time in the late 80s. And so I tried to be really comprehensive, but it only deals with the making of specifically the making of the first movie, yes.
Um, music behind us, sorry. Uh, what were some of the hurdles with writing this like look at the film besides like getting people to talk about it and what is that does that always usually like the biggest thing? I mean I'm working on a documentary right now about somebody and it's sometimes it's been hard to get people to talk about who the documentary is about because it is about deceased comic book artists and writers. Um, and some people I've been able to get very easily, and it's just like, how long do I wait for? I'm not writing anything as much as it's like going to become like a film, and I'm like, how long do I wait to see if these people want to participate, or do I just put out what I have?
You mean getting people to contribute to comment on this artist you're talking about that you're
Right.
doing the documentary? Well, finding people is always hard. I mean, especially after an event or, different parts of that person's life, probably. But then after that, it's really getting people's trust. I found, at least for me, and I think that's true with anything and this is an investigative journalist book initially. It was. I mean, people were very hesitant. The only time they had been approached by the press and been able to speak to any press was right after the accident, and that was then they had to sign waivers with it. The production company said, you need to sign uh contracts that you won't, but that had all expired. So this was the first time I came along. They were very wary because obviously a lot of press is and media in general, they always want, people are very, the press has a bad rap, right? Or in even documentary makers, you have to earn people's trust, right? And that was true with documentaries I made as well. You really have to earn it. And I had a lot of work to do with The Crow because people were so anti what the media had done right after the accident, and turning it into this sensational story that really belied the true meaning of the movie, their experience. So I just made friends with some people, and then they called their friends who worked on The Crow, and people were like, this woman is for real. And I just reassured them. I mean, I think I said, meet me, talk to me. I really am not writing a book. I had to prove myself. And I didn't want to write a book that was sensational. That was not my legacy. That's not what I wanted to do. I remember the book when I was in film school. I remember the book that really inspired me. And I thought, wow, I can't believe a publisher has asked me to write a book. If I can find the story, I have most editorial control, a dream come true. And I remembered the book, The Making of the Movie Blade Runner, which was written by, oh gosh, I always forget his name, but he was a very famous making of writer. And it was such a great book, and obviously a great film, but it was just a great, really in-depth book. I mean, so I wanted my book to have that kind of integrity, and I hope it does. So I think just getting people's trust, I don't know, you just kind of get their trust and really make clear why you're passionate about making this film, why it's really something that you want to do with honor and integrity, I guess. That's what people want.
I go into it always saying, I think everyone, I mean, you and me, if I give you a bunch of different names of the people that I'm doing them on, you will probably know who they are, like Bernie Wrightson. But if I say like Bernie Wrightson or Mark Grunwald to somebody on the street, they're not going to know who that is. But if I say Stan Lee, they're going to know who that is. So it's like I want these people to be as well known as Stan Lee. Mark Grunwald. I have to say to people, oh, did you watch Loki? So on Loki, Mark Grunwald came back to life being played by Owen Wilson. Owen Mobius is Mark Grunwald. That's what Mark Grunwald literally looked like in day-to-day life at Marvel Comics back in the 80s and 90s. So things like that. So I want people to like stand up and pay attention to who these people are, just because I think they're as important as somebody like Stan Lee or Jack Kirby. You know.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
that's great. I think there's enough of an audience for that. Yeah, I'm sure. There's a huge audience for that.
how does the book break down? Do you go through it like the beginning, the middle, and the end of the production of the film, or do you just kind of like encompass it as like one story?
No, it's broken down in chronologically. Uh, the substance of the book, the original book, is about the making of the movie The Crow.
Uh-huh.
And that remains intact because the process of the making of the movie happened in 93. So,
Is it a white book with like a with Brandon sitting in the chair as the crow?
no,
No, okay, because I remember somebody had a book
this
about
is
the
the
making of the
original
crow.
book in
Okay.
2000. This is the 2003 version. And then this is 20 years later, a really good publisher in New York. I'm so excited. It's got this huge photo insert. So, anyway, the book, I mean, I think what I really tried to do with this book is not only chronicle the making of the movie, because I wanted to cover the origin of the crow, which is actually the first chapter, which deals with the comic book history and James O'Barr and really intimate. I interviewed James for the first. I interviewed him. I mean, he was great, amazing guy. The making of the movie, the creative vision. I really go into the technical aspects of it, the filmmaking aspects of it, what was innovative, what wasn't. It culminates obviously in the accident and then how they finished the film. So it is chronological in terms of the making of the movie. I wanted the book to be about a really in-depth view of how the people involved and the creative visions that went into detail about making the movie. So, I mean, Claudio Miranda was the gaffer on The Crow. Claudio Miranda has gone on to be a cinematographer and won an Oscar for The Life of Pi. He is a lot of people who worked on The Crow were young, hungry filmmakers of all different crew members, filmmakers, actors, especially the filmmakers. And many of them have gone on to do amazing things. Ariana Phillips, who was the costume director, I actually knew when I was a kid in San Francisco. We were part of a theater, professional theater school together when we were kids. Anyway, so it was just funny. She was the costume, but that was her first film, and now she's gone on to do huge films. So I wanted to
The
capture their experience.
isn't the guy who replaced Brandon for the rest of the filming the stuntman, right?
Yeah, so Chad Stahelski, it was his friend. He used to be in the same dojo as him in Los Angeles, which was the Bruce Lee method. It was
And he went on.
he's gone on to he became the stunt double for Keanu Reeves and then now directs the John Wick
Yeah, that's
films.
what I was gonna say. Yeah, he went on to be part of the John Wick franchise.
So Chad is I have a lot of Chad in the book because he was really instrumental in explain he was I mean
When I say that to
he was
people, when I say that to people,
Brandon's
they look at
friend.
me like, "Wow, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's like a huge part of the John Wick franchise. He's making damn sure something like what happened in the
I
set
mean, good
so
for
never
Chad.
happens on the set of John Wick because John Wick
Chad
has
was a
a lot of guns."
he was a stunt man. I mean, he was a stunt man who just really was very articulate. And I mean, look at, how he's grown. I mean, there's so many people who worked on The Crow who were young, creative, hungry people that were brought together by the creative dream of The Crow, and then they've gone on to do amazing things. And it's really that's why I think that in a way the movie itself is a little bit of magic in a bottle because creatively Alex Proyas's vision. I mean, it shattered a lot of. If you look at any other film that came out around 1994, the only other comic book film that had really hit the big screen, so to speak, in any substantial way was Batman, the original Batman, which was a really totally different stylistic film.
Right.
This was the first
Or in independent,
underground
or
comic.
in independent films and comics, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, right. Okay, right. But I mean, they were Hollywoodized. This was the first underground comic to come to the big screen, and actually people saw it. And it was iconic. It was iconic of its time. That it could break into mainstream. And then obviously we've seen that develop a lot. So in the book I cover that, but then also the second part is dedicated to the many efforts to rekindle the franchise, shall we say, The dramas around that, the creative dramas around the various talents involved with that, and then really culturally, why is The Crow so, why does it continue to capture new audiences? What is it about the franchise? And I really tell it through interviews of people who worked on the original film and other sort of industry people. What is it about The Crow that still resonates with people? And then I do deal in the end with the gun safety on set, how that has evolved over the last 30 years, how it has and how it hasn't. Referencing Rust, it's not a book about Rust, but I do think that was an important part of the ending of the book. I think it's an important thing to deal with. So
How much of the book do you talk about covering the rest of the franchise that came out afterwards? How it was like some people feel
uh
like like for instance going into the new one coming out for whatever people feel like it's an insult to Brandon Lee.
yeah,
They're
I
using
mean,
Eric Draven when that's not even Eric Draven's story. It's from what we can tell and what we know of this new film, it's not the Eric Draven story, but they're just using the name because the studios need to make that money over something recognizable. It's like we gotta have, our Spider-Man this way in order to make that toy money. Not that the
I
Crow
don't know,
toy franchise.
I don't deal much with the new film. I really don't, because I know some of the people who are involved with it, but I didn't want to veer into that because there are comments from various people who worked on the film. The original, I mean, there's a lot of people who worked on the original film who I recently re-interviewed, and they are obviously not very happy about it being made, and they don't think it should be made, or they have their opinions. And I chronicle their opinions, but I don't really cover the next film. I just mention it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the other ones that came out afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, there's some little anecdotes about that for sure. Yeah, I mean, not in depth. I mean, it's really about the first film, but I do have a little bit of, I would say overall, they're just mentions. I really didn't want to go, I really wanted it to be the making of the first movie.
Making the first. What about any of the bands connected to
Yeah,
the incredible soundtrack?
I have an entire chapter to creating the soundtrack, and Jeff Most put it together, as you know, and I have an entire chapter about creating the soundtrack, actually. Let me see.
Yeah, the soundtrack is still
Yeah,
one of the most incredible soundtracks to a
it
movie ever.
is. Oh, it's called the chapter's called Sound of the Crow, and it's
Cool.
about seven. Yeah, so I mean, I got some interviews for that. Yeah, that was it is still one of the top selling film albums of all time.
It's still making sales today.
Well, it is, but at the time, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I have the stat in the book, but it is. It was. It just. It's. There's actually a cover band. There's a Crow cover band, a Crow soundtrack cover band.
Oh, neat.
And there is. There's one at least. I think there's others, I was told by Jeff Most, but there is one in Barcelona or in and around Barcelona. And they're online. I'll send you the link.
Do they
They
all
do
dress?
like regular shows.
Do they
That's what
all?
they just do the soundtrack.
Do they all dress up like the Crow?
Uh,
The mime makeup, basically.
but
The mime makeup and
no.
the
I
glass
mean,
leather.
not in the pictures I saw, but
Oh, damn.
no, they kind of dress in the like not I haven't seen the makeup, just sort of genre dress, but nothing over the top. I mean, they look cool. They're online, actually. They have a YouTube channel. They have an Instagram channel. I think they have a YouTube channel too.
I just rewatched it because again the 4K Blu-ray came in the mail on Tuesday, and it was like I was worried so much about how 4K films studios like teal them up and do things to the color, and it just looks ugly as sin. The Batman films are a great example of like messing with the color of the films, and they just look terrible. As far as I can tell, The Crow looked good enough to me, and nobody's complained online about it looking like too desaturated or like like some things are not meant to be in 4K, like older movies, like old Star Trek, not meant to be in 4K. You can see everything, and it really stands
Right.
out. It looks
Just
bad.
doesn't
Yeah,
look right.
but
No.
I was like, God, what if I'm gonna hate this because the Blu-ray that came out was not an upgrade of any kind. That was just a DVD transfer, so it still maintained that kind of like grittiness snowy quality you'd see like on a old VHS tape. But no, it looked, everything looked fine. Blacks looked like black, like the way they were supposed to. Nothing looked like it was out of place or gray. You know what I mean? It really, I was really impressed with the care they put into that 4K release recently.
That is cool. That is great. Yeah, they went to great pains in and I of how they achieved that look with great with really purposeful new techniques in lighting and uh film work, and it that's what gave it that look. The creative team really did some very innovative work with lighting that had never been done. The cinematographer's work, Derek Wolski is just keeping the aperture open just enough. I mean, the film stylistically and filmmaking wise is really unique.
Um, why do you love the film so much?
I think well, when I first saw it, I just loved the look of it. It was such a I think they captured, I guess going back to when I first saw it in 1994, I loved the consistent look of the film. And,
Yeah.
then suddenly writing about it and chronicling it later on was just strange, but and wonderful. I think that creating that dark world, which I think Alex Proyas does really well, but I think that The Crow and very congruent with the story, with the story in James O'Barr's original comic book, and just stylistically keeping very consistent. Um, and then learning later on, I mean, they did a lot of that on a shoestring in a way, but it was just very well thought out. It was brilliant. I
You
mean,
know,
I think I mean, the story itself was great, and the actors, obviously, the actors which were inhabiting that world were well cast.
I had no, so it's the 30th anniversary, and then I had just got done doing an interview with somebody who brought this up because they brought up The Crow, and they reminded me. Do you know what other comic book movie was supposed to come out in 1994? Here's the hint: we just lost the film producer behind it yesterday.
Roger Corman?
Fantastic Four.
Oh,
His Fantastic Four was supposed to come out in 1994,
really?
and it
Oh, I
got
didn't know
shelved
that.
forever until somebody snuck a copy out of the vault. And then it's been all
Oh,
over every convention. You go to every convention, there's somebody with bootlegs, and they got a copies of Fantastic Four, the Doom documentary, like
that
that.
would have been totally different.
Yeah, totally different.
I don't know if it would have been better or not, but it
Yeah,
would have been
it's
totally different.
it's just it's been in the news a lot with fans because Marvel's about to do theirs. So, and then of course we got the remake coming out, and it's funny. It's like, okay, so we got the Blu-ray and we got the film was supposed to be out next month, and they pushed it back to August, and I'm just like, interesting. What that's all about? But we'll have to wait and see in August to see how that all turns out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going up against another comic book movie, Kraven the Hunter of all things.
I don't know. I heard about that. I don't know much about it though.
It's
I haven't heard.
he's a Spider-Man villain that Sony owns the rights to.
Yeah, but I
We
wonder,
gotta
I haven't
pump it
heard
out.
anything about whether it's good or not good or
What, Craven or the Crow?
well, the Craven.
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 I mean, it's just it's the same studio that made out Madam Web and Morbius. I mean, that's already a
Okay.
telling sign of. I have I want to keep an open mind about this Crow and see what happens. You know what I mean?
I
So
think we have to keep an open mind. I
right,
try not to let the people I've spoken to who made the original one, but I think that they come from a place of bias. So
right.
perhaps I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm really trying to keep an open mind.
Did you ever? This is just a funny, silly question at the very end. Just because I go to a goth club a lot, so you see a lot of people that look like the Crow there. Did you ever in the '90s, like or later on when you were an adult, like go to the goth nightclubs? And is that ever your scene? Because let's face it, the
Uh,
Crow is like a goth, like it's everything goth culture is like looks like and represents, and it's always considered the most gothic movie ever made.
what?
The Crow.
It was, yeah, I mean, I think there were other clubs before that. I did go to clubs before that, believe it or not, that were a little goth. Um, I guess off and on, yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have, yeah.
If you're ever in Massachusetts, we have this place called Man Ray. It's in Cambridge. It's awesome. It's very famous.
Okay. I haven't been there. I grew up in San Francisco. I used to go to New York off and on from a very young age, sometimes by myself. And then I went to high school part of the time in France, and I went to different, yeah, I don't know. I've lived around the world a lot. Yeah, there's some cool goth clubs, different places. I
at the
haven't
end,
been for a while, but
at the
there
end of
aren't
the
as many, actually.
at the
Not
end
here in the States.
at the end of the month, I'm going to a Gothic ball at a castle in Gloucester.
Cool.
Yeah,
How fun.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you once the book comes out? If they want to give you some accolades and praise about it.
I'm curious to I hope new audiences will read it. And this is a really it's an expanded it pretty much it encompasses the entire phenomenon of The Crow, the original movie. And I'm very proud of it, and I think so far there's some got great reviews from other authors from my publisher that do similar genre things. So I'm really, really pleased.
Where can people find you if they want to give you praise online, social media?
Oh,
Social
I
media.
did start, okay, so I did start an Instagram channel, and that's probably the best one. I mean, I'm gonna add more interviews like this one. I have so many interviews over the years. There's a Vice TV special I did not long ago I host as well, or partly host. Um, my Instagram account is probably the best one, and I always forget what it is because it's Crowbook 2024 at Crowbook 2024. I would say that's probably the best place. Or on Amazon, look up the book on Amazon and you can share the link because that leads to my author page, and all my social media stuff is the probably Amazon author page.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you again, Bridget, for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Look forward to hearing what you think of the book.